The devastating effects of carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome, CTS, is a devastating disorder that is one of many listed under the general term repetitive strain injury, RSI. Of all repetitive strain injuries, carpal tunnel syndrome is the most recognized and prevalent among the general populace. And due to this recognition, many people are concerned about being afflicted with carpal tunnel and its debilitating symptoms, a concern that should be on the minds of anyone that is involved in work or recreational activities that require extensive use of the hands, especially in static motions such as gripping or repetitive motions like typing, clicking, a computer mouse, assembly, etc. Let us look at a list of the symptoms associated with carpal tunnel syndrome and a list of steps that can be taken to help prevent this terrible and devastating disorder that has reached pandemic proportions. The symptoms. Symptoms include tightness, discomfort, stiffness, or pain on the front side of the hands or wrists. You can also feel tingling, numbness, or pins and needles affecting the thumb, index, middle, and one half of the ring finger. The thumb and fingers do not have to be affected simultaneously, as symptoms will often vary and move around. For instance, the thumb and index finger may be numb on one day, and the next day the numbness and tingling in the thumb and middle finger are more noticeable. Symptoms also include loss of strength in the fingers or hands and grip strength. You can also expect to experience pain, aching, swelling, and diminished coordination and dexterity. You also feel a need to stretch or massage hands, wrists, and arms. People with carpal tunnel syndrome assume a defensive posture in order to protect sensitive hands and wrists. Because carpal tunnel syndrome and its symptoms are something that everyone should be aware of in this day and age of computers, video games, personal assistant devices, and other technological advances, it is important to take the necessary steps in order to prevent carpal tunnel from developing in the first place. By implementing the following steps, you can greatly reduce your risk of getting carpal tunnel syndrome, as well as stave off many other repetitive strain injuries that are caused in the exact same manner as carpal tunnel, such as Guyon's syndrome, trigger finger, and tendinitis of the hands and wrists. The Carpal Tunnel Syndrome Prevention Protocol. Number 1. Task variation. It is wise to vary tasks throughout the day in order to keep the force and duration of the specific motion to a minimum. If a typical workday involves 5 types of activities, instead of doing task 1 for 1.5 hours and then moving on to task 2 for 1.5 hours, etc., it is best if task number 1 can be performed for 30 minutes, and then task number 2 is performed for 30 minutes, and so on, repeating task number 1 to 5 every 30 minutes until they are completed. If this isn't possible for the type of work that is required, ask your employer, health director, to implement a task rotation schedule where workers perform a different type of task every 1 to 2 hours throughout the day, making sure that each task is different enough that it does not tax the same muscle groups in the same manner as the previous task or the next task. It's still important that in these 1 to 2 hour shifts that mini breaks are taken for 2 to 3 minutes every 30 minutes. Implementing task variation is a very successful tool in keeping productivity high and repetitive strain injuries like carpal tunnel syndrome to a minimum. The second prevention protocol is task requirement limitation. The task requirement limitation protocol sets a limit on the duration and force of a given job or task, making sure that workers are only required to perform a certain number of repetitive movements or a certain amount of force over a specified period of time before a break is required. Implementing a mini break for every 30 minutes of work activity is very important in order to prevent muscle hypertonicity and fatigue from setting in, the main causes of carpal tunnel syndrome. Number 3. Ergonomic systems. Ergonomic systems and tools are important in helping to reduce the amount of stress and strain that is inflicted upon the body, but ergonomic systems and tools by themselves cannot prevent or cure injuries like carpal tunnel syndrome. Number 4, mini breaks. It is very important to implement short breaks every 30 minutes of work activity in order to reduce stress and strain to the fingers, hands, wrists, and forearms. As mentioned before, these breaks only have to last 2 to 3 minutes, but are key in allowing the muscles to relax, which helps to prevent a muscle imbalance from occurring and developing into carpal tunnel syndrome. Even more important in carpal tunnel syndrome prevention is implementing the following activities into these mini breaks. Activity number 1, stretch. Stretch the short, restrictive muscles in order to lengthen them, which reduces pressure on the underlying muscles, blood vessels, and nerves. For instance, carpal tunnel syndrome stretches the muscles in the front of the forearm that flex the fingers, hands, and wrists. The second activity is exercise. This strengthens the weak and underdeveloped muscles in order to help shorten and tighten them. Performing strengthening exercises to the muscle groups opposite to those that are short and tight allows the muscles on both sides of the joint to return to a more natural balanced position. The strong, short muscles are lengthened and the weak, long muscles are shortened, creating equality and stability around the entire joint. For instance, carpal tunnel syndrome strengthens the muscles on the back of the forearm that extend the fingers, hands, or wrists. Of all the ideas listed, the ones that are most important in preventing and eliminating repetitive strain injuries like carpal tunnel syndrome are mini breaks, stretches, and exercises. By simply being aware and implementing a few simple techniques at work, individuals can prevent repetitive strain injuries like carpal tunnel syndrome from occurring and experience many years of good health without ever being affected. For more information on how to prevent and cure carpal tunnel syndrome, check out Carpal Tunnel Master and Beyond on the link in the video description below.